How do you guarantee you'll win a coin toss? With a double-sided coin, of course, and that is what Movo has done with this microphone. They've created a double-sided mic to guarantee you will win at YouTube. This video's starting off a little silly. A lot of you watching this know me as the Movo guy. I've been using Movo microphones since the very first VXR10 came out. I've had a long-standing collaboration with Movo. They've sent me basically every single microphone or mic-related piece of equipment they've ever created. I've reviewed almost all of them publicly. This mic is really interesting. So why would you even need a double mic? What's the market for this? Well, if you've ever actually vlogged, if you've taken your camera out into the real world, you hold it out in front of you, you're talking into it, but then you see something that you want to point to, you turn your camera around and you point, you start talking, but now the microphone is facing completely away from you, and most of these on-camera mics are cardioid, so they only pick up from the front and they reject everything behind, which means when you're talking with the camera with the mic facing away from you, trying to narrate something that you're pointing at or showing the audience, your voice sounds very quiet, very muffled, almost impossible to hear clearly. So Movo, like other companies, have started to come up with a solution for this in the form of a double mic. And waiting for my mobile order. Oh my God, look how long this line. I keep seeing people that parked in the Staples parking lot and then walked over to pick up their mobile order. That's how to do it. That's how to do it here. By the way, absolutely all of the audio, 100% of the audio in this video will be captured with this Movo double mic. Unless otherwise noted, it is raw and unprocessed. The microphone is about less than 3 feet away from me. It's sitting directly on top of my Lumix G85, plugged directly into the camera. This line of cameras, the Lumix cameras, have very bad preamps, and that's why I'm using it right now, because I want you to hear what this mic at a normal talking head YouTube kind of a distance would sound like plugged into kind of standard crappy camera preamps. Later in the video, I will plug it in to a portable audio recorder, we'll plug it into a smartphone, we'll do all the different tests so you can hear what it sounds like when it's going into different preamps, different quality preamps. I'll also demo it in places other than my fully treated home studio, because this room has there's absolutely no reverb in this room. It's fully acoustically treated by professionals, which is not the situation most people are in. I know that. So once I get through the talking stuff here, I will demo it all kinds of out in the real world and in different rooms that don't have treatment in my house. Good? Good. Now it's getting the back and the front. So you say something, you can hear me. You don't want to say anything? You've been talking all morning. You gotta say something. Why is whining the first thing you're gonna say? Let's talk through the specs real quick. I hate when videos drag on the specs because you can look this stuff up anywhere. It is a double condenser microphone with a super cardioid polar pattern, which means that it picks up very tight to the front, very little to the sides, and it has a little bit of sensitivity directly behind the microphone. So cardioid, which is what you're used to working with, picks up directly from the front, a little bit to the sides, and almost nothing directly behind. It has a null section. Cardioid has null directly behind at 180 degrees. Super cardioid actually picks up. It's a little bit more sensitive directly behind, but that works for a double mic because you're not so worried about rejecting everything directly behind the mic if you also have a microphone that's put on the other side. You get what I'm saying. Frequency response, 45 hertz to 18 kilohertz, so it's not quite as deep as like a Rode VideoMic NTG. And again, the VideoMic NTG is like $250, and it doesn't go all the way up to 20 kilohertz, but honestly, 45 to 18, that's a really good range for standard spoken word vlog or YouTube talking head style stuff. So those are the main specs you have to care about. Now, what about the cool features? Well, you can either have the front mic on, or the rear mic on, or both on simultaneously. Now the front microphone is engaged. You're hearing the front microphone like this, and if I switch and I start talking into the rear and I don't engage it, now you're only hearing the front. This is the normal way that most vloggers operate, right? It gets really weird sounding when you come back behind it as opposed to when you come back in front. But if now I switch back to the front plus rear, so you can get a sense of the difference between going from here to going like this and talking into the other side of it, where I'm really, really close to this microphone at the rear. And now I'm speaking into it with just the rear itself. So now it's only the rear microphone that's engaged, the front microphone is not. So if I switch back to the front microphone, you're going to hear that you're not hearing me well at all, because I'm talking into the front, but the front is not engaged. Only the rear is engaged, right? You can hear that the rear is engaged like this. But then Movo did something very, very cool. There's a selector switch for if you're plugged into a camera or if you're plugged into a smartphone or a tablet. And this is amazing, because the number one thing that screws people up with these kind of microphones is whether they need a TRS or a TRRS cable. I did an entire video about that, which I'll leave in the comments if you're confused. But here, Movo eliminated the need for adapters or different cables, and there's simply a selector switch. It also comes with 2 foam wind screens like pop filters and 2 furry wind muffs, which I don't find very useful. All right, we are now testing the new Movo double microphone. We've got it on the front and rear setting, so in theory, you can hear me talking just fine, while you can also hear if anybody talks from up ahead. Like if Mom says something.
Hi, Boo.
That's a great test. Thank you for that. I didn't find them very useful, and it's probably because they're pretty small and pretty thin, especially compared to the one that you get with the VXR10 or the VXR10 Pro. And it comes with a Rycote shock mount, something that Movo started doing about a year and a half ago. They moved away from the cheaper kind of knockoff shock mounts and were able to establish a relationship with Rycote for the high-end shock mounts that we're used to seeing on Rode microphones and similar. And something very subtle that I don't really see highlighted on their marketing materials, I don't see a lot of people talking about, the rear microphone has been gain adjusted down. And the reason is that when you're holding, if you're holding the camera and pointing it away from you, if you're talking, that microphone is much, much closer to you than if you're holding your camera out in front of you, right? So think about it. If you're holding your camera out, the front mic, you got your arm all the way extended, the front mic is going to be about 2 feet away from you. But if you're using the rear mic because you're showing something, you're pointing and you're holding the camera like this, that rear mic is right in your face. It's like 3 inches away from you. I thought I was going to be blowing out that rear microphone by talking at my normal volume but being so close to it, but I rarely did.
He's got to move up from chickadees to parrots. That's exciting.
Chickadees to parrots, bud. They must have gained it down by 6 to 10 decibels. That is very smart. Now that you've heard some of the real world tests, let's get out of my acoustically treated space and check out this mic in a room that has a lot of reverb. Now I'm in the baby's nursery, so you can hear the different. It's a small room. There's basically nothing in here to absorb the sound. The walls are relatively bare apart from some decals. If you're working with a small spare bedroom, this is how the microphone sounds. This is sitting the exact same distance away that I was just a second ago in the studio. So let me flip back and forth. Here's a sentence that I'm saying here in this room, and now I'll flip back to a sentence I said back in the other room. Now that you've heard some of the real world tests, let's get out of my acoustically treated space and check out this mic. Massive, massive difference. Now that's not a problem with this microphone. It's not really a problem with any microphone. It's a product of the environment, and I talk about this a lot in my course, Audio 101 for Content Creators, and I talk about it even more in my Podcasting for Professionals premium course, which is the environment matters more than the mic. The room treatment, the acoustic environment, and the position of the mic, right? I could alleviate some of this problem by getting the mic closer to me, booming it out of frame overhead, but this is the setup that most YouTubers, most content creators would be using. Camera top with the camera a little bit away from them. This is what it sounds like in a normal, non-treated room. And for the sake of completeness, now I'm in my dining room. It's a larger room than the nursery I was just in, but it is similarly, it's pretty bare. Now we're in a slightly different setup. I've got the camera like 6 feet away from me, and I'm zoomed all the way in. This is the 12 to 35 2.8 lens for the Panasonic Lumix system, and I'm all the way at 35, which is the equivalent of 70. But that means that the microphone on top of the camera right now is 6 feet away from me. So what if I wanted to boom it instead. Let's hear how that sounds. Now I've got the same microphone, but it's on a boom stand that has been placed right here, the microphone. I'm now touching it. It's just out of frame, and I'm using a long extension cable. Now this is a standard 3.5 millimeter TRS extension cable, and because I have the microphone turned to the camera button, it's only sending TRS, which is really, really cool. Which also means that if I want, I could plug this microphone directly into a portable audio recorder. So let's try that right now. And now I've got it running through that extension cable into the Tascam DRO5X, one of my favorite pieces of gear. I'll link lots of videos about this in the description. You will suddenly actually hear what this microphone is supposed to sound like when it's going through a really good preamp, because until now all you've heard it going through is the crappy preamps in the Lumix G85 and the mediocre bordering on good preamps built into the Sony ZV-1. But this is a dedicated portable audio recorder with one really high quality preamp from Tascam, and this is absolutely my preferred technique. I mean, you know that if I wasn't out on the road vlogging, I would never, in the studio doing talking head, record directly to the camera, because it's gonna get just destroyed and demolished for lots of reasons, and not just the fact that it's got a crappy preamp. There's another video about 5 tips in 5 minutes for massively improving your audio I made that everybody should watch if you're not sure. I'll leave that in the description below. And now we're doing a quick little test with the Movo going directly into my smartphone. This is a Samsung Note 8, what was once a very, very nice, very expensive, top-of-the-line smartphone that is now many generations obsolete. But I refuse to keep buying a new $1,200 or $1,400 smartphone every year, so I'm sticking with this until it dies. Same exact situation, I haven't moved, it's still right here, boomed overhead. This is how it sounds when you flip the smartphone switch and plug it into a phone. So what are my thoughts on the Movo double mic? I think it's really, really cool. Let's talk about the tone. The front-facing mic and the rear-facing mic sound pretty good. They're not gonna blow anybody away or win anybody any awards, but they have a nice, deep, low end. It's not super rich, but it's there. It's clear in the top end, and it's not too muddy or muffled. So the front and the rear sound pretty good. The rear gets a little bass heavy because you tend to be so close to it, right? You're creeping up on that thing, but that's more of a function of the proximity that you're getting to the microphone. The front plus rear mode, when you've got them both engaged, it's not a great sound, which a lot of that's got to do with the fact that you got these two super cardioid microphones so close together, and super cardioid, as we talked about, they do pick up from the rear. And of course, when you're using both of them, now you've got two microphones that are both picking up from the rear, which is where the other microphone is. So like indoors, you get a very wonky kind of phasey kind of effect. Outside, it's a little bit better, but it's not a great tone. It's certainly serviceable. It's absolutely usable, definitely for YouTube or like social media content creation. Probably wouldn't be using it on a paid client professional project, but you probably should be using something better than a $60 mic for a paid professional client project. Having said that, for $60, you get the double mic feature. It's super easy to use, very, very versatile. You get the carrying case, you get the pop filters, you get the windscreen, which doesn't do that much. That's probably the one thing I wish they could have shoved into this mic. If they could have given us a 100 hertz roll off, just an on-off switch for a 100 hertz roll off, that would have helped the wind noise problem a lot, because this thing is too compact to get one of the big, huge dead cats on there. And those tiny little thin furry wind muffs, it's just not doing enough. I think if you're vlogging outside, if you're walking quickly or briskly, you're gonna have trouble with wind, and it didn't seem to matter if you were on the front, the rear, or the front plus rear. It was a problem no matter what. That's the biggest downside of this mic, but honestly, I give it my full thumbs up, 2 thumbs ups. I don't have a rating system here. I like it, but the headphone jack doesn't give us monitoring. Why? Why are so many mic companies putting headphone jacks into these microphones and only letting us use it to listen to playback and not giving us the option for direct monitoring? The headphone jack is already there. Why can't I monitor the audio? I'm sure there's a really good engineering technical reason for this, but I just don't understand. Would you like to see one of those blind audio comparisons that this channel has always been so popular for? I can do a comparison between this new double mic, the original VXR10 and the VXR10 Pro, a 3-way blind comparison so you can decide on tone, on sound alone, if this is the mic for you. Let me know if there's enough people who want to see that. I will make that happen. That being said, thanks so much for tuning into Audio for Content Creators. Come back anytime to sound better and level up. Hit the like button if this was helpful. Subscribe for more content. And we'll see you soon. Should it be we'll hear you soon? I'll hear you soon? I've been saying we'll see you soon on an audio channel for years. Oof.